What if the same system that made Toyota twice as productive as its competitors could make you the candidate no company can afford to pass over? In 2026 forever layoff era, where small rolling cuts are hitting women leaders hardest, staying still isn't staying safe. It's falling behind. I'm Sabrina Brahm, psychotherapist, executive leadership coach, and host of Women's Leadership Success, ranked in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally. And today I'm talking with Olaf Boltzka, 27-year Procter & Gamble and Donna Hair continuous improvement leader, who used Kaizen to drive a 95% on-time delivery rate from just 50%. That kind of transformation, it works on careers too. Olaf reveals the 3 capabilities that determine whether continuous improvement works for you: courage, humility, and discipline, and the simple 15-minute daily practice that compounds into extraordinary career results. You're not going to grind harder and hope someone notices. You're going to build a system that makes you impossible to overlook. Let's get started.
Welcome to Women's Leadership Podcast, showing you how to influence people, improve your performance, and advance your career. Brought to you by women's leadership and career expert Sabrina Brahm and womensleadershipsuccess.com. Here's your chance to meet women trendsetters leading the way to success, accomplishment, and balance in business and life. No matter if you're a manager, CEO, or entrepreneur, join Sabrina for coaching and no-nonsense advice to improve your career and bottom line.
Well, hello. So happy to see you here today.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
I have a very unusual relationship with you as opposed to my usual guests on the show. I have been involved with looking and responding to your posts 5 days a week for almost a year. And the incredible thing that has happened is I have become a evangelist for continuous improvement. Many of my coaching clients have now begun listening to you on LinkedIn, watching your posts, and have had great results. So I am so excited about you being here today.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, it's indeed a very unusual relationship. We met on one of these LinkedIn courses, didn't we? And I've been trying to continuously improve how we do LinkedIn. So again, continuous improvement.
Yes. And we also share, we had training with David Peterson, one of the best coaches that ever existed. So we had that in common. And David Peterson was a guest on my show maybe 15 years ago.
Wow. That's an honor to be on the same podcast as David. Indeed, one of the best coaches I've ever met. I was very lucky to do a course with him and even a 15-minute one-on-one discussion with him before he passed away. When was it? A few years ago, 2 years ago or something? Yeah.
Yeah, incredible man. Well, you've spent 27 years at Procter & Gamble and Danaher. Is that how you say
Danaher.
Danaher,
yeah.
What drew you to continuous improvement, and what has kept you committed to it for over 3 decades?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Sabrina. I'm the son of a German engineer. So, of course, you ask all these questions about how things work. How can you do things in another way? Why does it have to be that way and not this way? So that's what got me started. I was just a very curious boy early on. And then as I went into my studies, first in Germany, business and computer studies, and then over in the UK on organization analysis and behavior, I always want to understand why people do work in the way they do it, and whether there are different ways or better ways. And as I did my PhD, I got very much involved with Carol Dweck's work on the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, and I found it fascinating that even after your formal studies, you could still continue to learn. And that's what really got me into continuous improvement, a bit in Procter & Gamble, but then a lot in Danaher, where continuous improvement is sort of one of the key principles of how the businesses are run. So that's what got me into it. And honestly, I'm learning so much still that in a way it keeps me young. So that's why I'm still at it after more than 27 years, because it's still a learning opportunity every single day.
I agree. I learn something new every day. It's really fun to do that. For listeners not familiar with continuous improvement, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. And continuous improvement really started out in Toyota about, 80, 90 years ago. Toyota, after the Second World War, a Japanese company, Japan was one of the losers of the Second World War, so they didn't have many resources. So what Toyota did and the Japanese government did was to get a lot of people in to help, a lot of Americans, incidentally. Edward Demings was one of the people who came over, and they started looking at ways of building a system, doing the best with what you have. How could you deliver high quality? How could you deliver just exactly what was needed at the right time? And that's how it all started. That's what we now call the Toyota production system. A lot of people will also have heard the expression lean or Lean Six Sigma, which are other names. So that's how it started. And then Danaher really was one of the first companies in the 1980s which learned it from the Japanese. It's kind of funny. The Japanese learned from the Americans, and then the Americans kind of relearned from the Japanese. So Danaher was one of the first companies of relearning from people who'd worked for Toyota, building it into the Danaher business system, or DBS. And that's why I've learned a lot of the continuous improvement trade, if you like. And fundamentally, it's really about three things. The first one is, the Japanese call that kaizen, or change for the better. It's this idea of, hey, we can always do it in a better way. So that's number one. Number two, this idea of another Japanese expression, going to Gemba, the real place, go to close to where the work is done, the operations line, or traveling with the salesperson, because you see the facts there, and it looks a lot different if you go to Gemba and check versus if you read a slide deck or you sit in a conference room. And then the third element is that you really want to focus on the customer. What is value adding for the customer? What would the customer pay for in your product or your service? So those three elements, Kaizen or continuous improvement, going to Gemba, and then this idea of adding value for the customer, that's really kind of the foundation or the principles of continuous improvement. And then, of course, I could talk for ages about all the details, but I won't do that here.
And if you want to learn more about the details, definitely look at your LinkedIn post every single day. That's so important.
Thank you.
I am so convinced that this is a great thing to do, but I'm wondering, what are the statistics on this? Companies that use continuous improvement or Kaizen, how are the results different than other companies?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, of course, we want to see results, right? Continuous improvement is about results and growing people so that you get results long term. I can give you a few examples. I started with Toyota, the biggest automobile company in the world. I checked the numbers for last year. So they've been very successful doing that for 90 years, almost 100 years now. And if you look at the productivity of a worker at Toyota, so if you divide their revenue by the number of people they have, and you do this for some competitors as well, you see that the productivity by worker is about twice as much as the next competitor. It's amazing. Right?
Wow.
So
wow, that is really amazing.
It's kind of mind blowing, isn't it? Dana has been a very successful company with a CAGR, compound annual growth rate, of about 15, 16% over the last 40 years. So I think that's a pretty good number. And then what most of your listeners probably will have seen on the news, because Dana was a very unknown company until a gentleman called Larry Culp became the CEO of GE. Larry Culp used to be the CEO of Danaher for many years before that. Then he retired, then he got bored, and then he did GE. And that's probably one of the biggest turnarounds in American history, what he and his teams have done at GE. Again, he's used continuous improvement at GE, and look at what they've done from a company which has been deeply in trouble to splitting off into these 3 different companies now, very, very successful. So that's probably the most famous example of good results, excellent results behind continuous improvement.
And also, how does it impact employees? Retention, morale?
Yeah, that's a good question, because when I went to the Global Lean Summit in September, and I was very fortunate that as part of that conference, we could go into Toyota and we could observe and visit and see how they do things. And they still tell you, even in the US, well, we employ for life. You come to us, we do a very thorough assessment, we train you, we retrain you, we give you opportunities, we want you for life. So think about that, a company which still, in 2026, offers you lifetime employment. Wow. So it's about job security, it's about engagement, because everybody's asked to submit ideas to help continuous improvement. So that's number 2. And what I've always shared with my teams in Danaher was that, look, the more proactive you are in improving the business and improving the numbers, the less you need some of these rounds of layoffs, which we all read in the newspapers, right? 10,000 people laid off, 20,000 people laid off, 25,000 people laid off. You don't really read about these in continuous improvement companies or companies who do continuous improvement well, because those companies are more proactive in improving the numbers before you get into the crisis. So I think these 3 are good reasons for doing continuous improvement, and I've given you a few numbers here in showing how successful those companies have been.
Wow. It's very impressive. I'm wondering what the competitive advantage is for executives or people that want to keep growing their careers.
Yeah.
Show up.
You're getting better, right? I often compare that to somebody who's rowing on a river. The moment you stop rowing, the current will move you right back. So if you don't improve, but your competitor or your peer, if we talk about careers, does, well, that's a disadvantage. So doing nothing is a disadvantage already. Learning kind of keeps you at the same level as your peers or your competitors. If you use continuous improvement, maybe even continuous improvement in AI these days, you'll just move faster than everybody else. So it's in your own interest, isn't it, to learn faster and learn some of these methods and tools and cultures of getting better.
I was thinking of AI because I have people say to me they don't want to learn it, or they don't want to get involved with it, which is a big mistake, because True. That's what's happening.
True. And I have these discussions with my wife a lot. Do we need to use everything for AI or AI for everything? No. Will it help us in all areas of life? No. But I like your point, what you said, being on the other extreme and saying, I'm not going to touch it, probably isn't helpful either. And I actually find it very, very useful for researching companies, for even just quick questions I have. When was this book by Carol Dweck again? We can search on Google, but if you search on Perplexity, it's a lot faster and you can go into more detail. So it just helps me to go faster.
Yeah, definitely. And I recently wrote a course, and when I was finished with it, I put it in AI and I said, did I miss anything?
Oh, perfect.
And right away came up with something. I was critical thinking. I was like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? So it's really good for making sure you've done everything correctly. Can you give us an example? I know you've done a lot of consulting in different companies. Can you give us an example of a company that wasn't using it and then started using it and how it changed the company?
Yeah, I referred to the GE example already, which is probably the most famous one. I also have examples within the Danaher context where Danaher is a company which does a lot of acquisitions. So we take companies, we buy companies, and then they are improved with the help of continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. And if people are interested, if your listeners are interested, there's plenty of examples of companies which have been bought by Danaher. Then the Danaher business system, or DBS, has been applied, and then they got better in cost, in quality, in innovation, in growth. So it's well documented because the processes just get better. You start from the customer, you look at, okay, what's the current process like? And if give you one specific example, if the customer gets their products on time about half of the time, so the on-time delivery, as it's often called, is 50%, that's not a happy situation, is it? Mm-hmm. If you and I were to order on Amazon and Amazon was late 50% of the time, we wouldn't be very happy customers. Mm-hmm. So that was the situation in one of the acquisitions in Danaher. And then with the help of continuous improvement, that number got up to the mid-90s. So 95% of the orders were delivered in time according to what the customer wanted. And that's a dramatic change, isn't it? Just imagine picturing yourself as a customer of that operating company. That's the kind of results you can get if you do it well and if you bring the people along who help you with it.
Wow, from 50% to 95%, that's incredible. When you go into a company, what's the hardest part of getting them on board or where they're willing to try this new method? I think so many people are resistant to changing what they've been doing. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good point, because the mindset of the leader or the mindset of the leaders is key. It's as simple as, do you want to do continuous improvement? Do you want to commit to it in the way it's required? And you know, it's kind of a coaching situation. It's the same as in coaching, right? You've had people who don't want to be coached, and you can sing and dance if they don't want to be coached. That's it. And continuous improvement is similar. It was the former Californian leader Arnold Schwarzenegger who said you can have results or excuses, not both. And I sometimes see this in continuous improvement as well. It's amazing how much time people spend explaining to me why they don't need any help. The numbers are bright red. They're not making their numbers. They're not generating their growth they need to generate as a leader. Mm-hmm. But they're telling me they don't need continuous improvement. So it's like somebody saying, I want to lose weight, but I'm not going to go to the gym. Okay, that's fine. If you don't want to go to the gym, that's okay. But please don't hire me as a fitness instructor if you don't want to go to the gym. Right. So that's sort of the top level. It's the mindset, because I've learned in my experience that the mindset is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you as a leader want to commit to continuous improvement and want to put in the effort it's required, you will be successful. If you want to prove that continuous improvement doesn't work in the organization because you don't want to do it, well, you will be successful as well in proving that it doesn't work. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think it's going to work, it will. If you think it's not going to work, it will not. So choose wisely, because whatever you think, whatever your mindset will be, that will be the reality. And I can only help you if you are committed to do continuous improvement. it's a bit like Marshall Goldsmith says in coaching, right? If you don't want to be coached, that's fine, but then don't ask the coach to coach you if you don't want to be coached.
Yeah. Something you said a little bit earlier about are we in agreement of what we want to have happen? I find that in my marriage, if there's a disagreement, we need to stop and go, what's the goal? Where are we going here?
Exactly.
And in working with another person or with the company, what's the goal? Are we in agreement there? If we don't have agreement there, then we can't do any of the other pieces.
Absolutely. And then on the next level, what I've learned is that it's really three capabilities which are important. Number one is courage, because continuous improvement only makes sense if I have the courage to say, this is red. It's not as good as it could be. We're not perfect. We could improve, right? It's courage to say, we're red. I do this in some companies, and this will be the last action you do, right? Because they don't like people saying they are not perfect. So that's number one, the courage. The second is humility that I can still learn. And again, I'm not perfect. I've had leaders tell me, what are you going to tell me in continuous improvement? I've been doing sales for 25 years. I know everything in this business. Lovely. But then don't do continuous improvement, because if you're not humble to learn, well, why would you bother with continuous improvement? Mm-hmm. And then the third one is discipline.
It takes courage. I'm going to stop you for a second, because it really does take courage to be humble. True. And to say, I can learn something new. I don't know everything. That really does take courage. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, that's fine. You're right. And I see people who don't bring the courage to be humble. But I've also learned that the best leaders I've had, the best leaders I've seen in companies were extremely humble. A.G. Leffley was the CEO when I was at Procter & Gamble, a very, very humble man. Somebody raised their hand in a big town hall in Germany and said, we're not mentioning suppliers in our vision. Shouldn't we mention suppliers in our vision? And the room was dead silent. A.G. Leffley looked at her and he said, you're right. Thank you for making that point. Picture that, right? A young 20-something person challenges the CEO and the guy says, thank you for this point. We'll change it. Amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the third capability is discipline, a bit like going to the gym. Are you going to do what you say you're going to do? And continuous improvement obviously doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. It's a long journey. So are you in this for a few years, a few decades? A.G. Leffley always talked about making the decade. I talked about Toyota being in this for 90 years. Dana has been in this for almost 40 years. And other people like Honda, I think, has also done this for quite a while. So this is not a flavor of the day or January 2026 sort of initiative. Well, that's something which you really need to commit to and the discipline to do it. So if you bring these three, courage, humility, discipline, I can teach you continuous improvement, and you'll improve your company, you'll improve your life. Because as you said, if we have the same goal, if we're prepared to work on it, we can make it happen, can't we?
So what's one thing our listeners could do today to begin this process of learning continuous improvement?
Yeah. The most simple way we typically start is by looking at a problem, because a problem has a lot of emotional baggage. But the problem in continuous improvement really has 3 or 4 elements. We have a target, we have an actual, we have a gap. And if it's sort of a process or something, you could also say we have a trend, right? The big goes smaller or bigger. So that's how it starts. You need to define those elements to see whether we have a problem or not. Now, that sounds obvious, but I can tell you I've been in organizations where we didn't have a target. Oh, well, I've been in organizations where we've discussed for 45 minutes in a meeting what our actual is because of the IT system and then the right side of the room said something different than the left side of the room. So it really starts with defining a problem and then making it visual. Either, if we talk about growth, for example, if your actual is above the target, you're green. If it's at the target, you're green as well. If you're below the target, it's red. So color code it. And to your earlier point, are we open enough to call it red? Or do we call it, it's kind of a reddish green, or it's a yellow, or it's a red, but it's not really a red. It's dancing kind of around. That's how it starts. Visual management, defining what winning looks like, red or green, color coding it, red or green, being open about it, intellectually honest, if you like. And then if it's red, to stand together with a team, or you can do this on your own, right? If you say, I don't want to eat more than 1,500 calories per day, that's also a problem, right? Target, actual, you might have a gap. You color code it every day. And then you think about, well, where do I see the reds? Right? Well, I usually see them on the weekend because I'm out with friends and I eat a lot or something. Okay, well, that's your why you have a red. And then you learn from it and you say, well, who's going to do what by when about it? Well, I might only have one dinner with friends over the weekend as a potential countermeasure, if you like. But that's really how it starts. Visual management, defining what winning looks like, color coding it, why am I red, and who's going to do what by when to sort of address it. And if you do this in a company context, we literally have these 15 minutes board meetings or standing meetings or daily management meetings. They're different names, which does exactly that, right? In every Danner factory, you have this meeting in the morning. We look at the numbers, safety, quality, delivery, inventory, productivity. Are we red or green? If we're red, why are we red? Who's going to do what by when? That's how it works.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we're just about out of time, but I want to ask you, how can listeners connect with you if they want to learn more about building continuous improvement cultures?
Yeah, they can look at my LinkedIn. As you said, I'm posting quite a bit on LinkedIn.
Can you spell your name for people so that
yes, absolutely. It's Olaf Böttger. So the first name is Olaf, and then the family name is Boettger. Okay. And if you search for that name on LinkedIn, and I think there's another Northern German politician with that name, but you'll figure out whether it's me or the guy from Hamburg. I'm not the guy from Hamburg.
And we'll have it on show notes too. Perfect. Is there another way they could get a hold of you if they were interested in hiring you to do consulting for their company? How would they reach you?
It's probably best to check on LinkedIn because I do the daily if they send me a direct message on LinkedIn, I'll answer within a few hours, assuming it's the same time zone because I'm based in Germany. And that's the easiest. So if they want to work with me, just share what your problem is, send it to me as a direct message on LinkedIn, and then I'll reply very, very quickly.
Great. Well, thank you very much for talking to us today. It's been a great pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know your time is valuable, and I never take that for granted. My work is dedicated to senior managers, directors, VPs, and leaders who are ready to advance to the next level, build unshakable executive presence, and create the influence and networks that get you seen, heard, and promoted. If today's episode gave you even one idea you can use right now, that's exactly why I created this podcast. And if you want to go deeper, head over to sabrinabrahm.com and subscribe to my free 3-minute newsletter, The Missing Leadership Link, packed with twice-monthly tactics to increase your visibility and command respect in every room you walk into. And if this podcast has been valuable to you, please subscribe and leave us a review. Your review helps other women leaders just like you find this show and get the strategies they need to rise. And can I ask a small favor? Please share this podcast with at least one other leader in your life, a colleague, a friend, someone you know who is ready to step up. You could change the trajectory of their career with one simple share. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Sabrina Brahm, Executive Leadership Coach. DM me anytime. I personally read every message, and I would love to hear what resonated with you today or answer any questions you might have. If you're ready to advance faster, coaching with me will absolutely help. Reach out at sabrinabrahm.com about one-on-one coaching or join my exclusive Impact Leadership Mastermind. Until next time, keep elevating your presence and advancing your career. You've got this. I believe in you.
Thank you for joining your host, Sabrina Brahm, on another Women's Leadership Podcast. If you have questions or comments, you can email her at sabrina@sabrinabrahm.com. Since 1989, Sabrina and her team have helped hundreds of women managers, business leaders, and entrepreneurs with valuable trainings, articles, books, and executive coaching. For additional tips, interviews, and free access to Great Leaders Today mini course, visit www.womensleadershipsuccess.com.